All right, welcome. A lot of you guys were with me on stream last night, so welcome back. Obviously today we're just going to go through some scalping. It's going to be pretty, relatively relaxed, and kind of I'll give you an overview of what the time is going to be like. First thing is there are going to be periods of silence because I'm not going to be talking throughout every single minute of every single bit of price action. So there will be some periods of silence where I'm basically doing other shit. The nature of today is really to give you an overview of kind of what I'm looking for on an intraday perspective, what I'm looking for in terms of setups, ideas about setups, how I may look at playing more aggressively into scalping conditions. A little bit more about what I'm looking for in terms of kind of RSI structure and the nature of RSI, and then diving off from there. So really, what the key thing is today is to give you, maybe a bit more of a flavor of, what a day of scalping can look like, what a day of hopefully action can look like. At the moment, it's a little bit awkward because we don't have a huge amount of action. Aside from on ADA, which is fine, but we don't have a lot going on elsewhere, and we'll kind of go through that and my thoughts at the moment, and we'll see if we get the quality of setup today or not. And that's basically going to be it. So basically the session is just going to be full of what it looks like for me day to day, maybe if we get some decent moves, how I interpret the market in these conditions, and what I'm looking to try and do with my scalp plays, and maybe give you a bit of an idea about why it's kind of okay to be wrong. I think it's going to be multiple times today where I might be incorrect in my decision making or my thought process. We may not even get to that point where the decisions that I make are going to have any outcomes. We may be another 6 hours away from that. So we really don't know what to make of things when we get a day like today, when we get a scalping day. I don't know what my day is going to turn out like. It could be very successful, it could be a very poor day, it may be a very boring day. So all we can do is wait and see. So we'll switch over to the chart and we will kick off there. Oh, I should mention as well, the plan at the moment is basically do this for a couple of hours. I've then got to nip out to go and pick up baby Schiller from nursery. I'm then going to be gone for a couple of hours. And then I'll probably be back on again this afternoon while he naps. So I'm kind of going to slightly spread the time out. Only thing that I've got to do, obviously, is collect baby Schiller from nursery. And then I'll come back on once he has his afternoon nap, I suspect. All right, so, what we're looking off at start of the day doing is one of the things that I like to do is obviously scan the market. And I've spoken about this before in terms of the way that we scan the market. And one of the easiest ways when you're scalping to scan the market is literally to hit percentage change. Right? It's the quickest and easiest way to determine where you may like the focus to be today. So we can see at the moment that as a whole, okay, DeFi moving very aggressively. We see some things in our standard list down here moving aggressively, but what we really see is that kind of DeFi is taking the top 3 or 4 spots, maybe even 5 if we go down to Aave here. We got some relatively decent movement across here, but they're all on relatively illiquid things. It's all relatively illiquid. Not great. Bow, we got to disregard because of its liquidity. Alpha is probably scalpable. CRV, probably not. Aave is. Badger isn't. So, okay, so let's have a look at this list and see what else is. ETC at 17%. Liquidity is still an issue on ETC for me, so I don't think that's going to be as viable. Atom, Algo, also awkward. Okay, so some of the top movers for today are relatively illiquid, which puts me in a position where I may be factored out of some of the bigger movers. So we can switch around to looking at kind of plan 2, which is on some of the mid-ranges. So let's take a look at Rune, because this is super interesting to me, and I think this is a great look in play here. So Rune is 4.5% up for the day, but has a very interesting RSI structure. RSI structure on Rune is really good, similar to ADA. So we've got this consolidation back at mid, despite grinding up. We've got this nice consolidation at mid. So what we're looking at here is, can we catch a momentum break? Now the reason that this is so attractive is because, number one, we've got a nice trend line break, and we've got continuation, and we've got the RSI above the 50, and we're underneath this bottom resistance region here. So if we get an impulse away through here, then maybe we can start thinking about targeting the sort of 840 region through here. And Rune has the ability to be an aggressive runner. So I think this looks like a nice trade to look at taking. You know, down to here, this is a 26%er if this was to run, and we can have the stop nice and tight underneath here. So this is definitely on the agenda for today in terms of taking a position on. Right, and so now what I'm doing is, you'll see the process of what I've just done there, is I'm aware of the picture on Rune, right? So it wasn't like me just absorbing or kind of, you know, noting all of those conditions there and then in the moment. I'm aware of what the conditions are like on Rune. But the key thing that I did in that process is look at the 4 hour and appreciate that what horizontal levels are present. So I know that we've got the horizontal resistance just above us. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I switch to then the lower time frames and start to dive down. So we get into the hourly, and I know that the hourly RSI is at the 50 level. I know the 4 hour RSI is also above the 50 level. So we've got a couple of nice bits of confluence already. So imagine this like a big checklist. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm saying, number one, consolidation underneath 4 hour resistance level. Point number two, 4 hour RSI at the 50 level. Point number three, 1 hour RSI at the 50 level. Okay, and what I'm doing now is the setup is already, and it should be, sort of coming together in your heads as well. So what we're doing here is we're anticipating a breakout. That's what we're doing. We're saying consolidation under resistance, RSI primed to move higher on the 4 hour and the 1 hour. And so what does that lead us to? Well, it leads us to a breakout potential on Rune, which means that we now want to dive into lower time frame again. So we go to the 15 minute, and we'll start looking now, well, where can we take entry? Where is the potential momentum play that we can take on Rune? So now we're looking at Rune, and we take a look at the RSI, and we can take a look at any potential levels that we've got in here. And, you know, there's probably one, I would suspect, through here. I think this is probably the cleanest, and this was unfortunate fake out here. But I think this is the cleanest. And we can also see from RSI perspective, you know, we're just getting locked down in this region. So now we'll take the 15 minute first. We'll say, okay, well, this is a relatively good level for us to start basing our thinking about playing into this. There's this 15 minute level here. Relatively good basis to start thinking about when Rune gets above this, we may want to be in position, or certainly think about having a position. We can't build now because we're at resistance, so I can't enter a position. I don't even want to start a position here. I would just want to sit and wait. So let's map everything out of what we've got. We've got 4 hour consolidation, and apologies if the typing's loud, but I'm just smashing the keyboard. We've got 4 hour RSI at 50. We've got 1 hour RSI at 50. We've got 15 minute clear resistance level, anticipation. Right, so the anticipation is breakout. We can't buy because we're at resistance. Okay, so right now we go here and we say, well, can't buy now at resistance, which leaves us with two options. We scale lower if we believe the breakout conditions. 2, we wait. Okay, so very similar to the ADA play. We can't do anything at the moment, so we can't buy it now at resistance. We've got two options. We can scale in lower if we believe that our conditions here, the consolidation, the RSI levels, etc., are fine for us, or we're waiting for a breakout. So they're the options that we've got. We're either waiting for price to get above here, in which case we'll start looking at taking a position. And what we're doing here in this is we are beginning to think about the way that we can transition trades across multiple time frames. Because like this indicates here, this is what I'm aware of, and what I'm doing is I'm looking at taking a lower time frame momentum push here and rolling it into the 15-minute resistance level, watching the RSI on the hourly, watching the RSI on the 4-hour, and watching the 4-hour consolidation. So what we have in this regard is I'm utilizing lower time frame for a play that I know has the ability to roll over into multiple higher time frames. Because like I said, this is a 4-hour resistance level. The 4-hour RSI is only at 50. So if we get impulse up on the 15-minute and we get strong move that takes us up here, and my entry is, let's just say it's where it is, 675 here. Then I've got plenty of room to play around if Rune bounces around here, because I've got that 4-hour picture in mind still. Okay. Now, if we want to just play aggressive momentum scalps, then we can also look at that potential option. Okay, so Rune is something that for me has the ability to transition onto higher time frames. I've identified that possibility and I will be looking at playing it with that possibility in mind. However, I will also talk through the detail around how we would take more aggressive positions in just realizing profit on Rune. Because these can be very powerful scalping moments when we get impulse, we get upside and we take our profit. Okay, and we just cycle through those 3, 4, 5, 6% pumps and we just cycle through those on alts. So Rune is something we're going to keep an eye on. Now, in order to keep an eye on this, what we're going to do is we're going to set an alert. We're not going to set it too high. Okay, we're just going to set it through here. We don't want to set it, ridiculously high. We don't want to start setting it into the 680s. We want to be alerted as soon as we start trading above this level, in the last high here. So we're just going to keep an alert on. If the alert on Rune goes off, then great, we'll check back in. Now, we know this play is very similar to ADA. Okay, which is another identified market that we like the look of today. Right, so the ADA position is a very nice one to look at, and we'll run 2 charts here as well, so we can dive across as many things as possible. But ADA very, very similar. Breakout region here, and we've got the trade set up in this chart window, but we've got clear breakout here. Nice momentum, RSI at the 50, rotating around, pushing to the upside. This is what we're looking for in Rune. Okay, see these similarities here. Okay, look at these similarities. RSI here, right? These are identical. This RSI, ADA's already moved. We haven't had any movement on Rune yet. So very, very similar pictures here that we're looking at, and we'll look at the way we're going to try and play this. Now what we've also got here, okay, is Renko. Alright, so this is something that's always running here on my screens. And we're looking at 3 different pictures on BTC. Alright, we're looking at 3 different pictures on BTC. We're looking at basically this is kind of the lowest time frame, or the more aggressive time frame here. This bottom left panel. This top left panel here is the mid, and this one here is the biggest. This is the highest sort of time frame scale, even though there's no time attached to it. It's pure price movement. Okay, so this is always running, and we will have the ability hopefully today to take some trades on BTC. However, we are absolutely in a no trade region right now for me. We're trending quite nicely to the upside, but this is a no trade region. There's no setup on any of these that would enable me to take a position. Okay, so we're just neutral on BTC here. We're trending upwards, so we don't doubt that. You know, you can see this one here. Remember, this is the highest, sort of the clearest overview. Bless me. And so we've got a clear uptrend here. Price is clearly above the moving average. Trend is very, very clean. We're just flipping support into resistance in this region quite nicely, and it looks as though we're trying to break out. So if we take a look at this here, you can see a couple of regions of kind of clean lines. Yeah, we'll take this one as well. So so we've got some nice, kind of nice clean lines through here. We've got this resistance here. We've got this area here, which is still the one we're kind of thinking about maybe getting a retest back down to if things turn negative. We've got this one here. So you can just see the way this structure is just bouncing through, consolidating, bouncing through, consolidating, and now we're anticipating potentially bouncing through. No setups to take at the moment, no divergences, nothing that we're looking at. The indicator on here is the awesome oscillator. The moving average that I'm using is the Heikin-Ashi moving average. So we'll come back to Renko later. There's nothing to kind of discuss in detail on Renko at the moment. So that's our overview. Now, what we've also got to do at this time is we've got to think about how many markets do we want to look at? Right, how many markets do we want to look at? Because we can have multiple setups on a lot of markets, but the more that we begin to land, the more we look at other markets, the more we begin to dilute our thought process. Because there's too much for us to take on board. So we've got to stop and say, okay, well, we've got two plays. We've got Ada that we like the look of and we're already in position for. So we like that play and we're anticipating the play on Rune. But we don't want to go too much deeper than that. Because as soon as we start going deeper, we start to dilute. Because then we're dealing with a position where, we're going to be obviously taking very similar positions. We're going to be taking, longs primarily, and so we don't want to just be in 6 different long positions and increasing our risk. We really only care about playing ideal setups that we've assessed to a decent degree, and we have a realistic expectation of what the play out would be on those. Yeah, Freedom, you definitely weren't on stream last night because I answered this multiple times. Right? There's zero confluence for my alt trading decisions with BTC. Zero. How strong or valid is the diagonal line for resistance or support? I like the diagonal lines for breakouts. Okay, so momentum-based plays can be very good with diagonals. Horizontal is absolutely the superior way of drawing your levels and lines, 100%. What am I using today? I'm using the Aspire Favo Sticks. It's this. This is what I'm using today. Cheap, nice pod vape, good battery life. Big fan. I've got 3 of them, so. Yeah, I was laughing at Ed. And he says, how long did it take you to grow your hair? Like 18 months so far. Yeah, a little bit over that. Yeah, but, well, no, maybe 20 months-ish. And will I be more powerful when mine is long? 100%. 100%. How do you determine the portfolio or risk of each trade, such as a position per scalp? So we'll come on to that with a little bit more detail with BTC. What we're looking for, and I'll give you the overview, okay? I'll give you the overview here. What you're looking for is we have qualities of setup. Right, so what we've got is we've got an A grade quality, a B grade quality, and a C grade quality. When we have an A grade setup, this may be a divergence into key support with confluence from AO, right? And a B grade might just be a divergence, and a C grade might just be a support touch. Okay, so when we've got these, we've now got 3 different strengths. We've got an A, B, and a C setup. Our A setup we want to risk 5% against. Our B setup we only want to risk 3% against. And our C setup we only want to risk 1%. Right, so what we do is we take our risk here and how much we want to put against positions from the strength of our setup, the quality of our setup, and the backtesting process that's aligned with that. So if we know that A grade setups are this and they're very, very successful, then we want to be risking more against them. Okay, if we know that B grades here are, they're okay, but they're not the best, then we want to risk less. And if we know that C's are basically, opportunities to maybe try and take a trade, then we want to risk the least. Right, so that's what we're doing. So when we're thinking about the way that we, take our kind of, portfolio and our thought process, it's based on the quality of setup that we're trading. So this setup here for me is a pretty high quality setup, right? If we get a breakout, this is a pretty high quality setup for me. That's good for ADA as well, because I wanted ADA to avoid making a divergence here, which it did. So that's a good start for ADA. Is it too late to enter? I would wait for a consolidation period here. We're probably going to end up tapping back down to the 135s. Maybe just kind of keep a monitor on that there. We'll also keep a look on people talking about SHIB. Yeah, sure. Like 14% up. Oversold on the RSI into resistance. I can't do anything with this. Like, it's not something for me at the moment. We'll maybe take a look at it. I don't know what the liquidity's like to be able to scalp it. If I can't take decent positions, it's just not worth me looking at. We'll keep ETH up as well for today, because I think ETH is in a really interesting spot. So we'll keep lower time frame ETH ticking over. And monitor this setup. You have long hair? Yeah. I do indeed. Yeah, my hair's... Oh, past my shoulders now. Joining you live for the first time. What's your routine before scanning crypto? SPX, dollar, etc. No, just crypto. Just crypto. So just having an overview of BTC and ETH, and kind of what the conditions are there. I think BTC is breaking out. So I think BTC looks good for the upside move. I said this last night on stream, right? I was pretty convinced that everything was going to try and move higher today. I think BTC will try and push out. We just really need to see like momentum, right? That push. It's a very similar setup to ADA, and again, it's another one that I could look at taking, but it's just slightly awkward at the moment. But this is another one that I could absolutely look at playing. So really for me, it's just BTC and ETH and then start diving into alts. I don't do the correlation chain. Good morning. How'd you get a feel of directional bias for the day? This. Right, this. Whatever color this is. That's a very, very simple way of looking at it. Okay, if the market's green, it's telling you something. Now, we can see these days reverse. Okay, we see days where we're up, 6, 7, 8%, and we end up the day red. But we'll see that in the charts. We'll see the divergences develop. We'll see the opportunity in order to try and take some positions, right, to the short side. But for now, all we do is we look and we just say, okay, market's pretty heavily green today. As I said, we've got double digit greens across a number of things. We've got a lot of 4, 5, 6, 7% in the green. So this is a pretty strong green day for now. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see if anything develops. Yeah, you didn't like the gap between here and here. Yeah, that's the issue. Because when you look at this on the hourly, then absolutely it looks as though this would be the move. And so that is absolutely a cause for concern on BTC. However, on lower time frames, it really doesn't stop us playing this. It really doesn't stop us getting involved in the BTC action, because at the moment, still in the lower time frames, we're still fine. There's no signs of divergences yet, so there's nothing that's actionable to me. So in this situation, what you have to appreciate is that I have a system and I have a setup that I look at playing, which is either momentum based or it's divergence based, right? Or it's both. And if a market isn't giving me any signals, then that's fine, right? I don't look for signals. I don't look to try and force a trade. The trade will either come to me or it won't. So at the moment, that's all we're doing. We're just looking and monitoring and watching, and there's nothing available yet for us to be able to action. We've got some ideas about momentum-based trades on alts, ADA, Rune. We're in position on ADA. And then BTC, we're aware of, this gap down and what this move lower would be. But there's no signal either for me to short or either for me to get long at this point in time. So we're just sitting and waiting until the positions and system reveals itself. Thought the momentum-based and divergence-based are the same. No, they're different. But the underlying concept is the same. I just refer to them as different things. So the divergence-based thing is where we're looking for the momentum to have drained or finished. Okay, so divergence is formed when momentum runs out or is stalling. That's how we form divergences. So we push really hard to the upside and the momentum starts dropping off, which is how we form our divs. The momentum-based trades, which again I should probably phrase different, are when I'm anticipating that we are going to get a wave of momentum, right? So the complete opposite side of the trade. So I'm anticipating of when I think that momentum break is going to happen and when we're going to see buyers or sellers coming in, and I'm looking to tag into that. I think the Heikin-Ashi moving average is 77. I think, is the length. Any thoughts on Bow running the 1 hour div? Awkward position. It's like ETH. It's like ETH, where ETH has just kind of kept on creeping higher. And like, even though, you know, technically still diverging, we've seen instances of this before, where the resolution to this is this. I could maybe do a bit of a playing around with Renko to see what the deal is here. I mean, it's pretty damn close. Like, if it starts rejecting here, then I think ETH short is the play. So maybe we should watch ETH instead of BTC. Maybe ETH is the watch instead of BTC. Do you also use Cuban's bands along with RSI and divs to make decisions on your momentum trades? Divs and Cuban's bands work very well together. Oh, Woods, yeah, I saw this question. I'm not sure there is the equivalent of a reduce only order. Let me take a look. Yeah, there's only limits in the stop entries. So I guess you're just going to have to make sure that you manage those positions, right? You stay on top of it. What do you look for in RSI to identify building or falling momentum? Grinding at the 50 level. So basically, you know, you remember the RSI, that 50 point is like the bull and the bear line. So when we're above the 50 on RSI, we're bullish, and when we're below it, we're bearish. And it's a good way of thinking about it. So we often speak about the way that RSI rejects off this level, especially on a higher time frame. When we go, you know, kind of when we're trending down, we tend to reject off the 50 level and continue heading down. And we've seen that a lot. So when we have conditions that are like ADA, right? ADA's a really good one to just continue to show. When we've got something like ADA, where we've had a strong impulse move here, we've started consolidating, and the RSI is grinding around this 50 level, this is a potentially very good indication that the market is simply cooling off before attempting to push higher. Okay, so we're just cooling off after this impulse run, you know, which extends us. Then we take some time to cool off, bring the RSI back down. Now the RSI is back down here, we're ready for that fresh wave of momentum to the upside. So that's where we're looking for our triggers. We're looking for a resistance break, an entry point, our invalidation point of below the impulse. All right, and looking at moving in. So really the 50 level is kind of the key in this situation. Yeah, we're going to keep a close eye on ETH, because I think this is a relatively attractive setup. There's a solid trend line as well for now. And what we've got as well with this region on ETH is, you know, we're probably going to have a nice structure break in terms of a lower high here. So ETH has actually continually made higher highs through this region. And this may be one of the first regions that we create the lower high. I think you could have made an argument for it here before we did this bounce. So if we get down below this low at 21.24, this could be a nice short position here, because we'd break the trend line, we'd have our confirmed structure change on the lower time frames, and we know that we've got our hourly potential divergence, which is getting more and more awkward. Wondering if there's anything other than Sierra that does good tick-based Renko. No. Ninja Trader you could maybe use. It's even fucking worse than Sierra to use. Like, it's probably just worth, if you want to start utilizing tick-based Renko, start looking into Sierra. It really is the key. Melts, you got stocks on Ada. Can we long? Like, I wouldn't be longing it here, I don't think. Like, maybe if it comes back down a bit. But, you know, my entry is the 135. So if we get back down there, I think the play is still valid. But we've also got an awkward position here. Because, you know, if we think that ETH might break down, and there might be a short trade to take on ETH, then obviously that's going to affect our ADA position. But ADA and ETH are structurally very different in terms of the strength shown. So far. So that might put us in a slightly awkward position. But again, we're not going to start trading based on what we don't know. We can only trade based on what we do know. Yeah, so ADA's coming up to it. Okay, here. I don't think it's there yet, but it's certainly coming up to it. Most important thing right now on ADA is the fact that we've broken out of the consolidation, or I'm assuming that we're breaking out of the consolidation, and therefore this is the most important thing to me right now. We've got our alerts out on Rune, so we don't need to worry too much about keeping an eye on Rune. We can just, you know, let Rune do its thing, and we'll check in with it when our alert goes off, if it goes off. Any tips for scalping the daily open fades? It's not something I do, so it's not something that I would be comfortable in giving you any of my thought process on. If ETH does start breaking, it is something I'm probably going to take an aggressive position on. And then we'll deal with the ADA situation depending on what happens here. I think we should be able to squeeze the ADA stop up now. To here. Because again, we shouldn't be compromising this now. we can have some downside, but we really shouldn't be compromising back below this impulse area here now. 133. Yeah, still long on ETH. Yeah. That's only 30% of my total entry for ETH, you know, still anticipating a correction. You know, I'm long from this region here. So still anticipating a correction. But happy to stay in position. I'm not rushing out of position. I still think that ETH is showing really good strength so far, and I think there is more upside for ETH. So really just this is one of my classic sort of like swing building positions where I'm in no rush to, you know, add to position, get out of position, etc. This is a far higher time frame play. Taking a short on ETH reduces my position size, so the choice is to close, take profit, and then short, or just remain in the trade. You've got no access to a futures contract. You can't take it on like a September or a December contract if you wanted to take short. So that's what I'd be doing, right? Like I'll just take it on a separate contract. If you're forced to remain in the trade, then again, you've got to consider, you know, would you rather play the swing or would you rather play the scalps? And if you want to play the swing, then you've got to anticipate that your profit is going to dwindle. Okay, KuCoin just has perf. We'll get the fuck off KuCoin, number one. But then, you know, if that's the situation where you don't have access to any futures contracts, you know, then you just got to make a decision. Do you want to be more active, or do you just want to kind of kick back and just let the swing happen? But again, anticipating the fact that if you let the swing happen, then there's a high percentage probability that your entry is going to be revisited again. Right, so you just got to be comfortable in that. Yeah, I thought KuCoin would have futures, but would you consider building a position, something like this ADA play, by buying lower time frame dips along with a rising trend throughout the day? Build position with building momentum. Absolutely. 100%. And like we were saying, you know, this here is a really nice momentum play, and absolutely you can buy on dips. As long as your kind of momentum is not invalidated, then you're fine. You can take that approach most definitely. So Melts, the point of this stream is not to be going through all of the tickers that are suggested. Right, it's focusing on what I'm doing. So while I appreciate you looking for some guidance on things, I'm not going to start diving around random tickers. Like, all I care about is what I'm looking at today. All right, so I'm not trying to be unhelpful, but you know, this is a day where I'm working. And so I'm just going to focus on what I need to focus on. Yeah, invalidation of momentum is a drop below 50. That would be a warning sign for us for sure. All right, that would be a warning sign. Would be the drop below 50. I think the other thing that's important to note at this point in time is, you know, we've identified the conditions on ETH that we may look at taking a short scalp. even though we've identified the conditions, it's important that we don't trade under that assumption. So one of the really easy things to do when you're trading is that you anticipate something potentially breaking down or breaking up, and you begin to act as though the event has already happened. You start acting as though the event has already happened. So for example, on ETH, if ETH breaks down, then it may have implications for the ADA position. However, ETH has not broken down yet, and so we don't care, right? We eliminate that thought. It's something that's in the back of our mind, and we can act on it when it happens, if it happens, but we don't let it influence us in terms of other things. It's the same way when I talk about BTC. We're not trading two charts, so all we do is we react once we see something happening, but we don't start looking at ETH and saying, well, if ETH breaks down, then it affects the ADA position, and that's going to be really awkward, so what do I do? Because we're making up a scenario, we're making up a situation. Until it actually breaks down, we have no reason to doubt it. Managed to get an entry on BTC at 29k. Wanted to play it as a swing, but start sweating with every diff. It's a big position for me. Well, nice entry, firstly. And yeah, swing positions are very, very difficult. They require a lot of patience, discipline, right, to sit on your hands. Now, people think that trading is the difficult thing to do. No, like not doing anything is the difficult thing. When you don't use futures, how can you short? You can't. Yeah, you're just going to be selling. But then you're not really... The only reason that you would be selling is you're not technically making any money from that event. You're protecting your capital and you're potentially buying more of the asset back at a lower price. But you're not technically making any money from the position if you just sell your spot. So really, in order to take the short side, you need to be on, having some sort of perpetual futures contract. Yeah, you can sell on margin, but again, then you're getting more into kind of a slightly different situation. Right? Like spot margin is different because it's not really spot because you get access to a little bit more juice. But if you're just doing straight up spot, then yeah, you're not really technically shorting. ETH last night was a triple div. Yeah, and it's still pushing. Still pushing. If you had a 100k portfolio, how much would you allocate to spot versus futures? If you asked me that 2 years ago, I would have given you a very different answer. But right now, I would say probably 80% spot, 20% for trading. Is it true that Binance is not allowed in the UK anymore? Well, that's the discussion from the FCA. But Binance refute that claim and say that everything's fine. So we'll see. Yeah, you can't enter ADA here. You either got the trade earlier or you're frozen out for now. What would that mean to your trading? Apart from being happy that Binance had been kicked out, not a lot. Oh, Cred's done a video on the Binance FCA. Has he actually spoken about it? He's not memeing. Is he actually speaking about it in fact? Last night's stream started with that. He hasn't got last night's stream up. What was 2 years ago's answer? What changed your mind? I really haven't been a fan of spot crypto. I really don't like spot crypto. It's only because like I don't have any real allegiance to crypto. I don't really give a shit about crypto. I don't care if it succeeds or fails or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I don't really care fundamentally about crypto. So like I was never really interested in being a spot holder. I was only interested in being a holder of stocks. Whereas now I slightly changed that view. There are some areas of crypto I hope thrive, and I'm more happy to be a spot holder. And also my trading changed significantly over those 2 years to mean that holding spot was a far better option for me than continuing to just trade with a larger portfolio. Been away for 3 weeks. I hope that's on some sort of enjoyment basis versus anything negative, meaning you were away for 3 weeks, Cake. Would there be a video on how to hedge? Yeah, we can cover that. My biggest advice with hedging is don't do it. That's the biggest advice with hedging, because when you hedge, it's very awkward. It's a very awkward thing to do, hedge correctly. You find yourself in very awkward positions. So hedging can be very awkward. So yeah, I'll do a video on it. The best thing to do with hedging is to stick to the higher time frames when we're hedging. And like we see from the ETH position, right? The lower time frame says maybe we can hedge here. But now we're in an awkward spot. He says that DeFi of regulated activity doesn't include most of what Binance does. I presume that's supposed to be definition. The definition of regulated activity doesn't include most of what Binance does, and that's a regulator targeted the wrong legal entity. Yeah, okay, definition. Yeah, I see you corrected. Okay, well, we'll see what happens with the Nance stuff. Anyway, I think it's I don't think it's the last we'll hear of it. Tried to hedge once, never doing it again. Not smart enough for it. Yeah, usually hedging just fucks a load of people up. It's just really awkward to do. Nelson says, shouldn't spot and futures be treated the same? Because I think futures shouldn't be used to increase your risk. That's because what we're looking at doing is that when we've got a portfolio, we only want to have a certain percentage of that portfolio residing on exchanges. We don't want to keep huge amounts of money sat on exchanges. We don't want to keep 100% of our portfolio sat on an exchange. And so what futures contracts allows us to do is to keep a smaller portion of our money on the exchange, but utilize leverage in order to potentially trade that with a little bit more size relevant to our overall portfolio. So really, futures trading is a way of keeping less money on exchanges, protecting our money, but trading as though we had our full portfolio balance on there. Yeah, and what is the suggested leverage for trades? 10x, 20x? No, like leverage is irrelevant. If I'm sitting on an account that's $1 million, then why do I need to use leverage? The purpose of leverage is purely for reducing the exposure to money that you have to have sitting on exchanges. That is the purpose of leverage. If you're degenerately trading with leverage, then fine, that's another use case for you. But really what you want to do is you don't want to have any sort of predetermined level of leverage. It's all based entirely off setups. Like even if you're utilizing leverage to try and just aggressively drive up the value of an account, then that's a situation, and that's a thing that should be done based on the setup and the quality of setup that you have in front of you. It's not just, you know, this blanket number that you should have on all the time. The music playlist is... I can't share it because I can't share links in YouTube. It's jazz, lo-fi, chill, relax. What a combination of words. Jazz, lo-fi, chill, relax. And it's available on Spotify. Okay, it's a playlist. It's like 60 hours long or some bullshit. Yeah, 10 hours long. So it's just this. For A to play today, we use a relatively tight stop. You mentioned this setup is pretty good, so we potentially use higher risk, say 5%. Is this too risky as the stop is really tight? No, that's good, right? We're happy with that. The stop doesn't matter to us because the risk is 5%. So it doesn't matter if the stop is down here, right? As long as we're only risking 5%. It doesn't matter about the tight stop because the stop is based on where we think the trade is invalidated. So that's what we're doing. We are taking the trade based on where we think invalidation is, which right now is back below here. So that's what we're doing. So it doesn't matter about where that stop point is. All that matters is that you're managing your risk accordingly in those regions. Typical that like volatility completely dries up as soon as we get onto stream. So we've got like nothing to go from. BTC looks okay here. We really want to see this next impulse leg though. We'd like to see that market wide, obviously, for ADA to tag into TP1 as well. G-Man says, Melt, so XHV, I'm not going to look at the chart and I've got no fundamental thought process on it. We might take a look in a mo. So give me a couple of minutes and we'll think about looking in. G-Man says, do you have anything staked for the long term that you would consider hedging? E.g., I have a decent amount of Aave staked and it's bombing. Would have been cool to hedge when it was 500-700. No, like I don't. And the reason that I don't is because I don't like, I've said this multiple times, I don't like holding crypto in downtrends. I don't like holding crypto when we're trending down. Yeah, BTC did just pop. You're right. So if you do want to hold crypto and you do want to stake, then you just need to be prepared that you may need to make some adjustments in order to, you know, keep your total value relatively tight. Me personally, I don't like having spot exposure. I would much rather, if I'm going to try and utilize anything, do that with USDC than I would anything else. Yeah, this is good from BTC. This is what we need here, is this impulse. This is great. I think that BTC still, like, the target point here is the 37s. And so we can keep our alt plays in mind with that kind of 37 region. Breaking through 35 is a big thing for BTC. And we can take a look here. Give me 1 sec. We're going to get a relatively decent pop on Rune as well, I imagine, here. So we may be entering this as a scalp position and sliding this stop up. So I'm going to take 50% of the position on here on Rune, and then I will be back in a second. So I'm going to take a 50% buy here on Rune. and then I will quickly BRB. As you can hear, my dog is I think my wife's just got home, so I'm just going to let the dog out the office. I'll be back in a moment. Alright, back. It wasn't my wife, it was the cleaner. So, the wonderful lady who cleans our home arrived. So she's now also taking care of the dog as well. So yeah, 50% position on rune. Now we're going to take the anticipation here. 15-minute RSI looks good. Hourly setup looks nice. Obviously looking for the impulse. So we're going to take this. We're going to have a nice tight stop in below here at 650. You know, really nice stop. Because either we get the impulse here or we don't. And that's it. We don't care about being stopped out. The same on ADA. Because we need the impulse. If we don't get the impulse, we get out the position. And that's the plays that we take. Like I said, we either get the pump that happens now, or we're moving out the way. One more leg up from Ada would be nice, just to tag that first take profit point. And obviously we would like ETH to also stay up here and not sweep these highs and then turn to the downside. We would like ETH to continue that drive. We don't want to see a failure here, because a failure here is probably a failure on ADA and probably a failure on Rune. But once again, trending up, so we assume continuation. I just want to test something as well, so I'm just going to stick my microphone on mute. And then I'm going to do some talking. to see if you guys can hear. So I'm gonna go on mute now, and just I would appreciate it if you let me know what numbers that I'm saying, and if you can't, then that's good. All right, perfect. Yeah, that's good. Because mute didn't previously work on my mic when I was streaming. So, and all of your guesses were incorrect. Vastly incorrect. And I knew people would try and come up with numbers, so I deliberately just said, completely random numbers. "3-1 England," says Gampt. Jesus, man, that's some confidence going into today. I keep my fingers crossed for that. Keep my fingers crossed on that. Absolutely. Alright, let's go, Rune. Let's show a bit of impulse here. Let's get a nice breakout. Let's try and flip some nice profit this morning. Let's go, Ada. Let's get into that 139. Let's tag that TP. I'm going to switch this to full a second, because we may need to update in the main group here. I mean, I could just peel some here if I wanted to. Just to be extra safe on this position. Capture the 2.2%. Hourly's still got some room. Let's see if we get one more drive here. So what we're looking at doing at this point in time is, like, we refer to it as paying for the position. Okay, I'm going to take the profit off here. I'm just going to take a little bit of profit early on this position. We're minimal distance now away from this take profit. So I'm just going to take some, slide the stop up, and then let the trade continue. Nine-day win streak on the cards? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think today is a red day. Oh no, today is not a red day. Today looks good still. So yeah, this will be the 9th day. You always enter position in 2 parts, sometimes more. So now interesting position. Now we're going to shift back to ETH. We've got the room position obviously established as well, and we'll keep an eye on that. But nothing really for us to do right now. So we're going to keep an eye on ETH. Because ETH is still at a super interesting point. It's kind of make or break time. Because if ETH impulses here, then we get a nice upside move and we break clear of this diverging structure, which is absolutely possible. If we reject here and we start closing in the red on this hourly, it's a pretty gross situation for ETH. Yeah, slid the stop up here on ADA. So the reason that I haven't gone any tighter, because it's a possibility to take it down to here, right? This is a possibility here. Is I don't really want to take that stop up here because of this still being a technical support level. And if we take a look at the hourly, what we're basically doing now is we're sliding up the stop here underneath this hourly impulse candle. And so we're saying, well, we shouldn't really get back below this hourly impulse candle here. You know, that's what we're doing. So we still have the support protection here. We still have the potential to dip lower and back into here. But we don't want to see us going below the impulse. And if we think about this, we discussed it last night. We talked about this being a potential impulse candle. Here. And we said that stop losses would be below the impulse candle. And you can see exactly where this sell-off stopped. Because like I said, there's usually a natural protection around these impulse candle lows in order to keep price above it. So we're just going to take on the same logic with this candle here, right? This green candle, and make sure that, you know, if price does trade lower, it stops here. So our point is still coming in underneath this. If Rune does successfully break upwards, first take profit's probably like 830. Like, it's probably just a hyper aggressive target region. Because if it breaks through this resistance through here around the 680s, then I think that, you know, this is the next region. So probably around the $8 region for now. But I really want to see it as it develops. Again, Rune needs to have impulse now. ETH needs to have impulse now. We need to see the next sort of, you know, power play, the next momentum drive higher. And then that's good for our Rune position. I think the market takes a dump very soon. I mean, if it does, then ETH's going to be the short play. Like I said, it's kind of make or break point for the market. Because I think we either get the aggression or we roll over. The majority of time frames still say we get the aggression. Majority of time frames still say the aggression is yet to come. So BTC popped, but ETH didn't. That's fine. ETH's stronger than BTC anyway. ETH has done better than BTC over the last couple of days. What's your opinion on ETH BTC? Really important support reclaim yesterday. Huge level reclaimed on the daily. Looks like it dropped out the bottom of the range and it's just reclaimed the range. I think ETH BTC looks good. Yeah, 50% in rain. Yeah, the rune stop we want to be below this impulse. So this is now the region of impulse, hopefully, right? Hopefully. We're not out of the woods yet. We're not clear of this region yet, but hopefully this is the impulse area, so we want the stop to be around 650 for now. We want to keep it nice and tight, because like I said, remember, these plays are all about the momentum happens or it doesn't. If it doesn't happen, we get out. So if the momentum doesn't push through, then we get out of the position. That's what these plays are all about, timing the momentum. And we'll have multiple stops in trying to catch the momentum, potentially. We've already had one on Ada. And then hopefully we get that pop. And the reason that this is successful for me is because the pops are far better than, obviously, my stoppages. So the stoppages tend to be tight. They're based on us getting the drive there and then. And then when we get the drive, usually there's pretty good results from it. So we've got 5 minutes for this rune candle, and this would be a really good start for us, I think, here. Do you agree with a lot of others that alts pumping together with BTC is not healthy for the market? Cash pairs always pump with BTC. Like in the bull run, cash pairs pumped with BTC every day. Like it's a different environment to where we were in 2018, 2019, which is where, you know, alts tended to suffer because there wasn't a lot of cash pair exposure. Whereas crypto as a whole against USD does very well when BTC goes up now. Alright, Theo, so for the last time, okay, and I promise I will not repeat this, I'm 50% in entry for rune. Is there science around timeframes for the impulse candle? No, but we can start to get a feel from RSI. So we can start to get that feeling from RSI in terms of when we can try and anticipate momentum coming in. It's okay, Theo, don't worry. Just make sure you buy enough to pump rune. I bought my punk this morning. Completed the deal. So that was nice. Yeah, congrats on punk. Yeah. It's my second, but I really like this one, so I took this. Do you watch for higher highs or higher lows on the RSI to determine momentum as well? No. No. Really just the consolidation around 50. We don't want to overthink the RSI. So, and this is something that, believe me, like this will happen to you. The more exposure you get with using RSI, the better you'll be at reading it. It's the same with anything. But you'll get a second nature for the way that RSI moves in relation to price, and you'll begin to be able to anticipate some of these things ahead of time. It's such a helpful indicator, because like this, like look, like how many times that we talk about this kind of 50 level as being important. Like it literally bounces perfectly off the 50 level here before it's impulse away. And so you start to be able to get a read of these things and an understanding of the conditions. You know, this is very simple. It's a two-step process. This is consolidation after a strong move higher. The RSI cools off, it hits the 50 level, and it impulses again to the upside. Like, that's all it is. It's anticipation, it's understanding of the market conditions, which are strong, consolidation, reset, second leg. Super simple, right? But it's just a basic understanding of the RSI and how you're using it in the conditions. How are we determining the impulse candle for Rune? Where the last move of strength has come from. So what we're doing is we're saying we're anticipating ahead of time that this is the breakout now on Rune, and therefore this is the impulse candle that breaks us clear of the resistance and pushes us into fresh highs. So therefore this candle here is the impulse candle. Okay, at the moment we've got it stopped underneath here because it covers our hourly block really nicely. So it's through here, and this is our push. So we're looking at the significant candle that breaks through a resistance region. Do you always enter a market? 100%. Do you use stock RSI? No, it's too quick. The stock RSI can be helpful in timing entries, especially in a swing perspective, but it's too quick. And it has the tendency to remain oversold or overbought and in the extremes for far longer than RSI does. Okay, so it's a good break by Rune. Obviously now we're ideally hoping that 665 here holds. So if this does retest lower, we're hoping this holds. And obviously we're still hoping that ETH continues to grind higher. We're not out of the woods in terms of this RSI divergence. It's still technically here. So we just need to be aware that, you know, this is still diverging each of these highs here. There's definitely something to be aware of in this region. It's still a lower high here on the RSI in comparison to the last high that was made. Yeah, there's no problem with taking profits 100%. Like, absolutely zero issue at all. At all. Like, and you make a very good point here, right, Yad? Which is, if you are in a position where you are happy with the profit that you see in front of your face, then you take it. There's no one that's going to criticize you for that. You know, if you look at money that's significant to you and, you know, does whatever you need it to do, then by all means take your profit. I'm such a big fan of essentially playing P&L, and I don't really care about admitting that fact. So ideally chilling, what I'd be looking for here is the consolidation back down here, and then once we break this high, then I would add to the position. So I talked about this a little bit on stream, I think on Sunday, but what I'm looking for is any move back down and then the strength shown to break the initial impulse high here, and this would be an adding to position spot. So it's all good seeing the retest, but what we really want to see is we want to see that move to go higher, right? Because we want to make sure that we have the strength to get above the initial impulse high that was created here and move into that upside position. So that's really what we'd be looking for. Yeah, Ada's probably too late because we've already impulsed. Okay, we've already impulsed. So, you know, we're now extended on the 15-minute. We're now going to be extended on the 5-minute. So, yeah, I would suspect this is probably too late. there may be room on the hourly, but you have a far more awkward position here because you have to have an entry here and a stop way below. So it's really, really awkward to try and position into this now at this point in time. No, don't worry about it. The questions are part of the process, right? If there wasn't questions, it would be me sitting here in silence. I mean, I would probably load up WoW and be playing WoW, to be honest with you, if there weren't any questions, so it's fine to keep them coming. It helps keep my addiction at bay. No, I'm already in ETH long, so I don't need to do anything with this position. I'm already in an ETH long from down here. So this is all fine for me. This is just ticking over more profit. We're seeing good shit in the market so far. This is what we wanted to see. We're seeing those impulses, those breaks to the upside. We're starting to see strength being shown. Good push by Rune. Right, this is the shit we wanted to see. You see the way now that we're starting to think about this. You see, remember this. Okay. 4-hour consolidation below the resistance, 4-hour RSI at 50, 1-hour RSI at 50, 15-minute clear resistance level. So what we've done now is we've said 15-minute resistance level has been overcome. The hourly RSI here at the 50 level is now impulsing to the upside. We're now starting to get that momentum. We're starting to get that push higher. Okay, so where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us now in a position where we've still got the 4-hour RSI, which is in the positive territory, and we're now breaking through the 4-hour resistance level. So very, very good signs for Rune here. That's perfectly in line with this summary that we gave earlier. Okay. So we want to be, you know, this thought process about momentum, I hope it's starting to kind of take shape. Right? We're seeing the way that kind of you getting that insight into my mind and the way that I'm thinking about some of these plays. And you see the way that we try and keep the stops nice. We try and keep the stops manageable underneath here. Nice and tight, and like I said, as always, the thought process with these plays is we get momentum or we don't. We push the upside or we don't. It's as simple as that. We use the information available to us in terms of RSI and a few of the time frames to determine if we have a runner or not, and we look at playing it. We never care about being wrong. So it's a very, very important thing in trading. We never care about being wrong. What we care about is having an invalidation for our idea and making sure we manage our risk to play the position. But we don't care about being wrong. We care if we're always wrong because there's something, you know, incorrect with our system or thought process. So ADA tagging way above TP1 now, which is great, but hopefully now consolidation. Tricky resistance region for ADA here. Tricky resistance. Yeah, Shib continuing. Really good move from Shib. Really good push. How's Alice today? Because Alice has a great higher time frame trigger soon. Yeah, BTC. I think BTC is going to make this drive across the highs here. 4-hour looks in great shape. 4-hour RSI here driving the upsides. Perfect. Good shit so far. Yeah, Alice and AXS looking fine. Looking really good. I need to get some land on Alice though. Not sure if covered already, I've just joined, then yes, so on the 1 hour bear div on ETH earlier, if when invalidated. Well, technically it's still present, right? Technically it's still actually here, because all we've done is continually made lower highs, which is what the top line is marked here. It's not a wedge. I'm looking at the divergence. So technically, it's still in play, which is the awkward thing. So what we're looking for now, and what I've been saying so far, right, future, is it's do or die, because either we get impulse to the upside that invalidates the divergence structure that we're seeing and that kind of weakness that we're seeing, or we roll over here. Obviously, we are hoping that we continue pushing. But we need to be aware of that structure. How do you put an alert on the horizontal line? Put the horizontal line in and then double click it. Add the horizontal line, double click it, and then there's an option to set an alert. AXS, so fucking good, man. I fucking love Axes. Yeah, I don't think if ETH and everything else pops higher, then ICP is gonna get wrecked in that, right? 100%. So what we had yesterday was a really nice divergence between these two highs. There's a really good div up here, and this was a decent trade, right? This is a decent entry here. Problem that you've got is that this already moved 10% to the downside, and once again, like, conditions are everything. You have to keep the market conditions in mind. So the market conditions here, look at ICP. We know what ICP is doing on the daily. We know it looks like a piece of shit on the daily, and we know it's a scam. But if you look at this 15-minute time frame, the market is aggressively moving upwards. What's it done? 70% in 2 days? So to get a 10% correction from a 15-minute divergence in an uptrending market on the time frame we're looking at is potentially all you're going to get. And now what this is going to do is this is going to be a consolidation region prior to the impulse to the upside. So you've just got to be very, very careful that you're aware of the market conditions of what you're playing. Yes, we know ICP looks like a piece of shit higher time frame, but when you look at the lower time frame, look at this. And you had a 10% sell-off. Had a 10% sell-off. Binance suspended GBP withdrawals. Where did you see that? So keep in mind, right, again, and like another piece of knowledge for this stream is time frame, trend is everything. If you're looking at the 15-minute and something is fucking rocketing upwards and it's done 70% in 2 days, 10% sell-off is probably a pretty decent return for your money on a short position, because the trend is up. So always remember the time frame you are looking at and the trend on that time frame is the single most important thing. What does your wife think about you spending lots of money on punks? Does she get it or think you're crazy? Yeah, so when I bought my first punk, I bought my first punk for 22 ETH. Yeah, I bought it for 22 ETH. And basically what that was is I'm just googling this a second. Oh yeah, Financial Times has got it. Interesting. Is anyone actually talking about this? Yeah, weird. Binance said that it was like bullshit though, right? There's a question earlier about whether or not we can slide the stop up. I would say no at this point in time. Criteria for re-entering or entering the remaining 50% in Rune is waiting for the initial impulse to take place, waiting for the inevitable correction to take place, and then taking a second entry once the correction has resolved itself. So, you know, like there's no FOMO about positioning fully here. What we're interested in doing is, you know, letting this overextend, letting this make its initial move. We still need to make sure that we're going to be on the right side of this, right? So we want to make sure that we do get enough of an impulse to carry us away. You know, ideally we'd like something like this, you know, with a divergence up at the highs here, then with correction down here, and then we can think about positioning the remaining 50%. But right now what I like to do is I like to wait until the first overextension has happened here, and then look at positioning once the correction has come, because we just want to make sure we're right. So we're not in any rush to stick full 100% positioning. We're literally, you know, like what, 1% above our entry, a little bit more, but that's it. So we're not interested in sliding up yet, because when the correction comes, it then puts us in an awkward position. So let's wait and see through the first correction. Spreading FUD on Twitter. No, I think it's a relatively important marker, because we know that Wednesday was the day that Binance essentially had to cease some of their actions because of the FCA decisions. So we know that Wednesday is the day that, you know, there may be changes to Binance from a UK perspective, despite Binance saying, you know, everything's fine, business as usual. Like, fuck that. Scammy piece of shit. They say that anyway. And they say that regardless. They talk shit all the time. So I don't listen to anything Binance say. All that matters is what are the actions that are being completed. And to me, blocking GBP withdrawals and deposits is a sign that everything is not as Binance are portraying it. Yeah, 650 stops still. So yeah, I think Binance was trying to protect itself. I suspect that Binance are having to make changes based on what the FCA have said. Whatever spin they'll put on it. You should do it once a week. I've learned so much. Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. Like I said, I enjoy these sessions. I enjoy sitting here and chatting. We've probably got around 25 minutes or so until I'll have to bail on kind of the first half of this stream. And then obviously we'll come back online later this afternoon once Baby Schuller is down for his nap. We've got around 25 minutes before I need to make a move at the moment. So we're still all good for now. Regarding keeping money off exchanges, do you have a preference on keeping fiat or crypto cold storage, especially if you're leverage trading futures for the other remaining portion? Like I tend to use a couple of exchanges, and what I tend to do is just kind of keep my fiat there. I keep my fiat at a location where I can withdraw it to my bank should I wish to. And the rest of the money is just locked up. Ignoring hedging, I don't really get why it makes sense to have shorts and longs open on alts if everything is dragged by BTC anyway. Shouldn't we always be all longs or all shorts? Yeah. Majority of the time, Road, right? That's absolutely correct. The majority of time, that logic is absolutely sound. Which is why we can never usually take counter positions for ourselves, right? We can't be like long on BTC, short on ETH. There's only very rare occasions where that will work. Typically speaking, we would always want to be long on alts, and if we have kind of a long bias like I did for ETH, then it would make sense that I would be actively looking for long positions in other markets as well. Yeah, I agree on Coinbase as well. I think Coinbase is a really attractive play. So Coinbase popping up as well, you know, hopefully good for the space as a whole. Again, one thing we're always keeping an eye on here is this ETH position, just because this movement is still confirming this potential divergence and this whole area of a slowdown. When we have areas of slowdown that are this large in size, they historically have resolved upwards. So actually all this has done is this has actually indicated good strength in the market by the fact we're actually consolidating upwards. BTC did this the last time on the 4-hour chart. It had a region just like this where it consolidated upwards whilst looking as though it's forming this massive divergence. Jesus Christ. Let's unplug that then. And it actually just broke to the upside. So we just got to be careful when we're looking at things of this length of time. We got to get careful that we don't get caught trying to short into this when actually what it's doing is trying to represent strength to us. Very, very awkward regions. How are you feeling about England losing today? I think that's a pretty fair representation of what will happen. Sacco Stein? I'd be okay with Sacco Stein. I don't care about Sacco Stein. I think that's a relatively decent choice. I would like to see more of Sancho. I would like to see a lot more of Sancho. I'm disappointed that he hasn't had more game time. But if Saka's starting, then fine. Coin gapping up, good shit. Be good for the long. Off topic here, other than punks, what other NFTs you in? That's not off topic at all. That's a fucking great topic. I'd love to talk about that. So I'm currently in the process of buying quite a lot of land in Sandbox. So the Sandbox game, I'm trying my best to accumulate as much land as possible in that. That's kind of a bigger area of interest for me at the moment. I think that will be a very, very long-term thing. You know, as Sandbox continues to grow and develop, and there's more sort of engagement and traction with Sandbox. So that for me is one that I'm looking at, you know, quite heavily. I bought myself a Kong, Cyber Kongs, just because again they're launching a partnership, or they have launched a partnership with Sandbox, and their NFTs have kind of adapted into 3D metaverse characters. I think for me, from an NFT perspective, there's a lot of focus on the metaverse. That's what I'm really looking at. I think there's a lot of potential for the metaverse as a whole. Yeah, I think, like, again, we're not interested in sliding the stop too early, because we know that the correction's probably coming. So we're just not interested in going too soon, that's all. And we don't know about, like, what that's going to look like in terms of whether or not, it comes down past a certain point, or it's very hard to predict that with that level. We know that the support down here, that's all we can go off, really, for now. Like I said, we're waiting for correction. Where's that correction going to take us? Don't know. Do we want to slide our stop up early? No. Yeah, so NFT stuff, really just focusing on metaverse. I think Meebits will see a resurgence, because I think that, Meebits in terms of metaverse characters will be very, very popular. So I think Meebits having a resurgence. I think Cyberkongs are doing a really cool thing with their kind of their roadmap. Really, I'm not interested in minting any more kind of, avatar-based stuff. I think punks are the only avatar-based project to be interested in. I think punks will continue to hold their value. I think they'll continue to grow in value. I don't really agree with many other avatar-based projects. I think there's one, which is punks. Everything else, I think, needs to have a link to the metaverse for me to consider it as kind of a longer-term hold. Thoughts on the tower call? Yeah, still fine. Chilling, right? 1 cent? What a bargain. The great thing about buying something that's 1 cent is that if it goes to 0, then you only lose 1 cent. Give me 1 sec. So obviously you're not losing 1 cent. Just to clarify, so nobody thinks that I'm retarded. ETH's doing a really good job again here. Is it EIP this month as well? So we've got some positive drivers. Do you ever use cross? Yeah. I use cross over isolated. Way prefer cross. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pause here. So we'll pause here for the first bit. We've been on for 2 hours already, so this is a really nice freeze point for us. So we're gonna pause the stream here. I'm gonna go sort out the stuff I need to, pick up baby Shulla from nursery, go and get all of that sorted. And then I will come back this afternoon once baby Shulla is down for his nap. And we will pick up from where we're leaving off with the positions, etc. and we'll carry on the discussions. We'll see what price actions developed. It gives us a nice break and to come back to some updated PA. And so I'll catch you guys shortly. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being here this morning.